We are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second live stream, and we plan to do one every week. And let's wait a few more minutes so a few more people can join. I'm Bhakti Shringapure from the Radical Books Collective. Also in black is Madhuri Shastri of the POLIS Project, and then in all the good colors, blue, gray, jewels, is Suchitra Vijayan, also of POLIS Project. And we are trying to figure out what all is happening today in the world. And we're going to be focused primarily on the US and how the US affects the world, right? Do we agree?
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
Unfortunately, that is the case.
All right. So let's get moving. Welcome. And we had a title for this particular live stream, and I'm just going to go over it. And the title came out of all these spectacular events that have been going on in the past week. Okay, one is of course the Super Bowl halftime show with Bad Bunny, applauded everywhere. Everyone can't get over it. Puerto Rican liberation, that's cool. Everything he did, the Americas, it was amazing. MAGA, Trump, everybody else was pissed beyond belief, giving more credence to the idea that Bad Bunny's act was revolutionary, resistant, all those things. Then there's the Winter Olympics, which I don't think every single person is following. But, it got my attention because I saw some of the press conferences that these skiers were giving, that the Winter Olympians were giving. And it was really touching because they were like, we represent the US and we're proud Americans, but the problem is that we don't like what's happening with ICE right now. And it was sort of moving. And then, of course, dear President Trump went and said Hunter Hess is a loser to talk like that. And then some other people joined in and he's a loser. So essentially what we are seeing is we have what's going on in Minnesota. We have what's going on with ICE in lots of places. And we have an inflamed American public that's bursting at the seams, right? And I think this is an extremely intense moment, bolstered, of course, by the Epstein files and what that means. And every single day, something new, horrible, and ghastly comes out. And we see the Trump administration, rushing to cover it up. And so we're having a kind of a crazy moment where there is a feeling that the US is in revolt. But this is delimited by the ways in which the media covers it, by the way censorship works, and of course by years and years and years of brainwashing around what even the terms of being, anti-American, anti-nationalist, critical of your country, in solidarity with the rest of the world. Some of these things are not quite coming through. There is a parameter within which all of this is working. But I wanted us to start with what's on everyone's mind, which is Bad Bunny. How did you all perceive Bad Bunny?
Madhuri, do you want to go? Go ahead. How do I perceive? Okay, I didn't know who Bad Bunny was till the halftime show was announced a few months ago. Mm-hmm. And then there was the whole SNL skit. And then really, I discovered him through the news and not his music. So for me, it was interesting to encounter someone in a time in which this was not something that I knew in terms of pop culture. But the performance itself was, for me, it was mixed, and I think it did a lot with that time. I think it was, he starts with the feels kind of centering colonialism. He goes to Ricky Martin, who talks about colonization again. And he says, let us not allow what happened to Hawaii happen to us. He has the power lines where he talks about all of that. And of course, there is this entire, from Cardi B to Jessica Alba, there's that. And then he ends with, and I think what a lot of people felt really moved by, and he says, God bless America, and he kind of teaches Americans a geography lesson, right? And then the Canadians seem to be really happy, and they're so excited that now they're Canada, and then they now have a little bit of like sexy in them. So in that sense, I think it was a representational, multicultural hit. But
exhilarating, absolutely exhilarating.
And it was
that
overwhelming.
moment.
And I spoke to people who are from these countries, and for them, it was a moment that was exhilarating, important. It felt, given all of the dehumanization of the Spanish-speaking diaspora immigrant American communities within the United States, it felt like it was important.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to understand that this is the largest commercial platform in the world, and we cannot. I mean, I want to enjoy this moment,
NFL.
and then I am like, there's also a moment in which we have to understand that Maduro was illegally kidnapped. Since then, Venezuela has stopped sending oil to Cuba, which is what sustained its already battered economy. And now that oil goes to Israel, and now we are seeing Cuba being choked. We are seeing what's happening in Mexico. We are seeing the deals Trump is making with other authoritarian regimes or authoritarian leaders in the region to kind of deport people who are rounded up, and all of them have to play out in the context. And end of the day, I just wonder if we are also conflating what is happening in the region with. I mean, NFL doesn't care about politics; it cares about money. It was a commercial decision,
Yeah,
a political
of
one.
course.
So
And it was a commercial
really
decision. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry,
no,
sorry.
finish. I'm done. Yeah.
I mean, it was a commercial decision that was made in September. Like they had
I know.
decided in September that Bad Bunny was going to be performing at the halftime event. And I wanted to sort of go off of Suchitra, what you were saying, like this is the biggest commercial platform. And is this like the appropriate stage for a revolution? Because, and I've been thinking about like, is the revolution being televised? Like the revolution will not be televised. And I feel like in this moment, of such intense dehumanization, there is such a desire to be seen in some way when you're so invisibilized,
Yeah.
that this is not to take away again from like whatever radical message that Bad Bunny had. And fully on board. But it seems like there is like this moment where people are so eager for anything that like crumbs are enough.
Totally.
And it just feels like there is also this sort of aesthetic appeal to what revolution should look like. And obviously any sort of performance is the place that emphasizes these aesthetics. And it's not Beyonce and the Black Panthers, but there is this idea that like people want to feel something, right? So like, oh, like if I watch the show and I see some aesthetics of like revolution through language, symbols, clothing, whatever it is, right, that maybe people feel like it is indeed a revolt and we have participated in some kind of articulation of dissent. And my concern is that these are moments that companies have known how to just weaponize, because to them it's like, oh, we can do this. It's like the bare minimum. It's not as bad as, I think Gil Scott Heron in his poem even says, like in the revolution will not be televised, like the revolution won't go well with a Coke or something like that. And it immediately made me think of the Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad. This is like a version of that, right? It is brought to you by so many sponsors vying for that spot. Apple Music is number one. But companies know that if you give people just what they want, that they can kind of temper this feeling, this revolutionary feeling. And we've seen it sort of in a weird parallel also, like food and snack companies who like when they came up with Cheetos or whatever. It's a concept where you bite into a Cheeto, it's super crunchy, it scratches that itch to feel like you want to have something, but then really it doesn't provide any satiety. So you still feel hungry and you go in and you eat more and you eat more and then they are the ones who are profiting. So there is that kind of version of it too. Like it's like, okay, like we gave you what you want, like you felt it, like viva la revolution, and then move on.
I know.
So what is the material change that have come from this?
Sure. I mean, I think somewhere within this is a conversation about the parameters of popular culture, right? Popular culture is extraordinary and powerful, but it can only come in these ephemeral bite-sized moments, and it's very hard to quantify past that at some level. But even I feel so cynical. Look, I was completely moved. I watched it and I was super moved, and it felt something. It did something for me, especially when he gave the little trophy to the little boy. And at that time, there were all these rumors, that it's Liam Ramos. It was very clear to me it wasn't Liam Ramos, but it was a little boy, and it symbolized how ICE is behaving around children and what Epstein is doing to children and the whole Epstein group, right? So I liked honoring that he honored that. But at the end of the day, once that moment had passed, what was I left with? Yeah. Lady Gaga and Ricky Martin, Zionists, okay? I'm sorry. Zara, okay? The whole celebration of his outfit is Zara, and it's so amazing. What style, what this, what it means. And it's like, it's Zara. Boycott the damn thing, okay?
Yep.
And so at the end of the day, we can only have an American moment of revolt at the expense of Palestine, at the expense of all of these kinds of things that so many of us within the Palestine space have been working towards at such a deep way. And and then even the people that were present, I hear that the producer of the show is an Israeli American as well. It's just, it's just so despairing that this is the framework within which we have to accept this, in which we have to receive it. And I know that's the popular culture aspect of it, but there are actually some countries where pro-Palestine stuff has actually become more popular. Like, I went to a concert in London last year called Together for Palestine. Some of their major stars were there, lots of bands. I mean, this is not possible in the US. And that's what shows like Bad Bunny remind me. It's on the backs of something else. And that cause is relevant. But this other thing is relevant too, with an ongoing genocide. So that's the limits of it, and it's painful.
100%. And I was sort of thinking about when you were saying this, Bhakti, that when we talked about the media coverage, I mean, obviously Palestine is happening, therefore Puerto Rico can exist as a colony, right? I mean, there's a very obvious through line. But then also, where there is an actual revolution, like in Minnesota, the way that the media is covering it, or what happens when you actually do have video evidence of people getting murdered and people getting run over and people getting shot, is like the gaslight of the century. People telling you, don't actually believe what you see. Don't believe what you see. No, this didn't happen, And it is so, it's almost, it's like a very violent gaslight, right? Because it's telling you to really overlook what you're seeing. But then there's like, why don't you look here at the Super Bowl where you can get a few crumbs, but don't look here. And that never happened. So it's really like where there is a revolution that's happening, there is this weird media coverage. There's no accountability driven journalism, but there's so much. I mean, I think that there was a positive amount of conversation that came from people being incredibly, obviously, openly racist about Bad Bunny, and then really getting,
of course,
really getting screwed.
I'm so fed up of reacting to that racism.
Exactly.
It is so boring. I am done.
Yes.
This is all liberal media does, is react to this, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
I just want to take a minute to say thank you to everybody who's joined. And I know the Friday group last week was like, Friday, this is the time. But I'm sorry. I think the Thursday trumps it.
I was looking at are these numbers real? Like, is it not, am I being gaslit?
No.
I want to say that my friend was right.
Yeah. You have a contact who told us go on Thursdays. No, I wanted us to leap by the media coverage of Bad Bunny and the euphoria and oh my God, to also the kind of tepid coverage of the Winter Olympics and what's going on with these people, right? With these Winter Olympians who. It's unheard of to me that a country will not put support for their national team winning medals and all this kind of stuff. And of course, the other through line for me, that's like seeing the Puerto Rico play, the grass played by all the people. There were all these videos about how adorable each grass was represented by humans. But anyway, when they made the fields of Puerto Rico and they gave us this sort of vibe of geography. And then the Winter Olympics, first of all, people wanted Israel out, right? And that was a huge controversy. Israel has killed 800 Palestinian athletes, and now they get to just swoop in and participate everywhere as if nothing's different. And so there were huge protests in Milan, of course, with that. But the other aspect of that protest, and I get it, American media doesn't want to cover any protests about Palestine, but the other aspect of it, which connects me to the Puerto Rico landscape thing, is the climate justice element. We all know ski slopes and all this stuff is like just a ridiculous accelerated global warming, and people were also protesting that. Why not make that connection? So the media gaslight is just so acute. It's like we're not getting some of the most important issues of our time. Even if you don't mention Palestine, you can get to some of those things, and they won't do it.
Yeah. And I think what's important to note is that the Italians are protesting for three things, right? They're protesting for, in general, the gentrification, the commercialization, the out of control tourism that is just destroying everyday life of most Italians. Second, they are protesting. There was a protest that is about the Israel being a part of it. And again, there is Trump sent ICE to provide protection for American athletes in the Winter Olympics. So another thing that the Italians were protesting was protesting the presence of ICE. And I think it is coming together of, again, it's what people have been saying for years since Seattle happened, is that climate justice, racial justice, and the military industrial complex are deeply, interwoven. And I just wanted to also respond to something that Madhuri said about that pulse of the people, again, which connects ICE to Palestine, to Minneapolis, is that today ICE can test social media trends and how people are feeling, which is again powered by things like Palantir and TikTok and Google and Meta, which means that ICE already knows the people's pulse. So they can decide what to do, where to deploy, and they can do geographical emotion sensing that can then help them deploy or diffuse protests. So at this point in time, this is literally colonization of everything. They not only know where your attention is going, they also know what to do with it. So here we are all feeling this moment of just relief of seeing people not dehumanized. You're seeing Bad Bunny perform. And that feeling that we share publicly is also quickly used and turned against us in terms of how we can exist, how we can protest, how we're feeling. So it's like constantly being seen and monitored, veiled.
Yeah. Can I throw in a very traditionally, kind of very boringly feminist comment here about these spectacles? It's dull as hell, and it reveals like I'm old or whatever, out of touch. But it's just like, I was enjoying the Bad Bunny, and then all the babes came out twerking, and I was like, we cannot have a world in which I cannot have a woman's ass in my face, and that somehow, the progressive moment cannot carry on without this. And I feel the same about the Winter Olympics, because I cannot abide that ridiculous sport where the man and woman skate around to music with this like kind of crazy makeup, and then they throw the girl and then she falls and they make dramatic faces. And it's like, what is this, the 19th century? What's happening? So it's just like these things, it's like where it's bursting at the seams, a kind of dissent, a kind of revolt, a kind of feeling, or whatever you're saying. But it's just, some of it is so regressive. It's just, I can't get behind it. I just can't.
I was thinking when you were talking about like why the media isn't covering these protests in Italy or any of the climate justice angle, that they're just so busy making money off of Epstein, right? Like we said last time. Yeah, I mean, why would they? They have catnip. They have, like I said last week, the latest episode of like Game of Thrones dropping. They have everybody's eyeballs. Like every single newspaper has an Epstein files little dossier page. So why would they cover all this? They're not motivated by covering all of this. They're motivated by profits and bottom lines and views and eyeballs and clicks. And so why would they cover this? It's not in their interest to cover it. It's in their interest to not even ask simple questions like, why they're just happily perpetuating this salacious information, making you come back for more. But they never question like, oh, why on earth are these emails released with the perpetrators' names redacted? Like, why is that happening? If there was some semblance of accountability or some even a performance of, we want to sort of start to dismantle the system that enables this thing to happen. Forget Palestine, forget Minnesota, forget all of that. At least in just this Epstein case,
absolutely,
they might ask a simple question or two about why the DOJ has released the documents like this. There's so many ways in which they've botched it. Unfortunately, I have not, as of yet, read much coverage of the congressional trial and Pam Bondi's testimony. I will leave it to the both of you to,
it was fiery. Across the board, there was one word. She's so fiery. Our Florida Justice Barbie,
oh my
she
God.
was just all fire.
My goodness.
Preposterous.
Dumb as a doorknob.
I know. It's awful.
Yeah.
She's just
she was talking about like Dow and NASDAQ and like all, and I was like, wow, what are you talking about? Like,
Jasmine Crockett, though. Jasmine Crockett's pitch was awesome.
That I saw.
Jasmine was good. I think even Pramila Jayapal, I thought was
was very good.
Fantastic. Yes.
But they're talking about the redactions, but I don't know. But nobody else is.
There are two things in the Pam Bondi thing that I think we should pay attention to. I think one is that, as Madhuri said, why is it that the perpetrators' names have been redacted, but the names of all the survivors have been made public?
No, not all of them.
Not all, but there are many mistakes.
Many mistakes. Because the hearing also had survivors who had come. And then I think, there's a moment when I think Pramila Jayapal says, will you apologize to them? And she says, it is one of those moments in which it's like they all stand up. And it's just like, I also have problems with bringing them and like what they did. It's just atrocious. Yeah. But also,
they consented, but yes.
They also have something called the burn book. Do you know what the burn book is?
Yeah, I know. I heard about it. Go on. No, tell.
I was like, are we back in, what was that really terrible
Mean
scene?
Girls.
Mean Girls. Not Mean Girls, like the one out of New York, the one that
Gossip Girls.
Gossip Girls, like the burn book is from the Gossip Girls, right? Like where you have like a book of like, I know everything you did. So Pam Bondi had a burn
book. The burn book is from Mean Girls.
It's from Mean Girls? Okay, I'm sorry.
I think it's from Mean Girls.
Sorry.
Wrong. Okay, so Mean Girls. Okay, Mean Girls, Gossip Girl, and now we have Pam Bondi. So they actually tracked what the legislators were searching within that, so then they could use that to come prepare. Yeah. And I'm just like, you are now, of course you're spying on your legislators. Of course you have little things, but it's also the way, if you thought Pam Bondi was terrible, Kash Patel was like,
oh, I know.
I was like, what? Who is this brown hall of shame?
Yeah,
this
I know.
man was just, and also I felt like Kash Patel was humiliated the way that Pam Bondi wasn't. Of course, Pam Bondi came across as being
fiery
nasty and dumb as,
I know, I'm joking.
Public.
Yeah.
But
I was just thinking, like, the clips that I watched, to everyone, I apologize for my dog barking if you can hear her. But the clip that the videos that I was watching of the testimony, of the grilling, it's kind of made me think, like, have we not come anywhere from Christine Blasey Ford testifying against Kavanaugh? This is where we have come to a woman protecting, people who are associated with pedophiles, people who are pedophiles, people who are rapists and abusers, We have a woman protecting them. We have a woman deflecting, derailing, refusing to announce. And how is this the spectacle that I know, but it was just such a sobering, depressing thought for me that this is where we came from. Christine Blasey Ford saying, indelible on the hippocampus was, what happened. And that was so powerful. And I just feel such a sense of sorrow. And I don't know what's going to happen from here. I don't know if there's enough. I know there are people who are distancing themselves, even on the right, from Pam Bondi.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's going to be the easy scapegoat, where they're just like, oh, she needs to go.
At least,
She
yeah.
botched it up while still obviously keeping yes. And I don't see so much from the progressive media. I mean, I think they could also maybe easily, liberal media, sorry, go after her as a scapegoat again while still cashing in on all of the salacious details of the Epstein files and without making any attempt at really trying to dismantle the power. So I feel she's the scapegoat. She's going to go,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But as you're saying, like, I'm trying to understand. Now we've had a bit of time, and there's been, as you said, we have the dossiers that have gone up in all the newspapers and stuff like that. But like, why am I feeling such a dearth of analysis? Am I not looking, or is it, I feel like, there is a tidal wave. There's a tidal wave of information documents. And these are not like, yes, this is shocking, but the volume is shocking. We know what bad people look like. We know what white male patriarchy looks like. We know what white colonial violence, Jewish supremacy combined together looks like. I get it that this is 3 million, 3.5 million documents, and there's a long history, all of that. But what is this scrambling like? Why am I not getting some sort of analysis that makes sense? Like, what is going on? What's the void that we have entered right now? Because the only things I'm getting are strange little bits and pieces. Various countries are defending their own, like investigating their own, like Norway is investigating their people, right. France is investigating their people, England is having its own meltdown. All of this stuff is happening, and then we have news outlets covering little tidbits, and then we have some kind of long analysis sometimes that is analyzing, why do rich people have bad grammar or something like that. Why are
oh my god, I hate that. I hate that.
So I don't know what's this word.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, first of all, if you fire all of your journalists and you get rid of your entire thinking team, like, who is going to do the analysis? Like, at Washington, what can we expect? And I think from Washington Post, one cannot, at this time. And I mean, what is the benefit to having a robust analysis? I think that this is this expectation. I feel the void that you do. I feel like desperate for it. I think there are a lot of progressive sites to shout out who are asking the right questions, and we will definitely do that. But as far as the liberal media is concerned, like, they don't benefit from holding these power structures accountable. They benefit from the existence of these power structures. They have a stake in it. And, they are in other countries like India, for example, where they are just openly the spokespeople of the government. They're just a version of this over here, slightly more sophisticated, slightly more couched in, like, journalistic language of journalistic rigor and neutrality, which is all these journalistic principles that the New York Times abides by, that it can just weaponize against taking a position, having a point of view. And that's what has happened. It's the complete elite state capture of these kinds of places. Suchitra, sorry, I feel like I cut you off.
And I like what Analysis Stack here was saying a little bit in the chat about corporate capital. And before that also there was something else. Thanks for your comments, and we can throw in questions too if you all want. Sorry, go ahead, Suchitra.
No, I think you have to look at both the supply and the demand of news, right? Because we are now looking at news as content. It's commodity. It's no longer news, content and commodity. So if you look at the demand, if the supply side of it, one, of course, as Madhuri's already said, you have gutted people. You've gutted newsrooms. Today, thanks to Ezra Klein, we had something called explainer journalism, as if it was like a new form of journalism. There was BuzzFeed journalism. So what you've really done is, one, you have reduced journalism to a kind of what used to be a nut graph before, what used to be an explainer, or you just setting context, has simply become the bare copy. Second, I would say that even when we read writers, because journalism is now become such a small elite club, that you have the mental gymnastics required to come across as neutral and objective is one thing. And second, I just don't think people understand anymore. The people who actually understand are not the ones holding these positions to pontificate.
Correct.
And literally, the New Yorker, the New York Times podcast ecosystem is people just literally just, it's word soup. There is no analysis. It is you crash my back, I scratch your back, and we think that is content. Now, the other thing that we've seen is also the comification of news. Whether you have from the Jon Stewarts to all of the comedians, literally the coverage has been, oh, am I in the Epstein files? Who in this room is not in the Epstein files? Oh my God. I'm just like, really? Is this really about you?
Mm-hmm.
And we've reduced this kind of collective holding of accountability to positioning yourself. Oh, I searched myself, and guess what, guys? I'm in the Epstein files. That's literally, I've read entire emails from newsletters from saying we are in we are in Epstein's files, and now let us break down why we are there and why we are right. And I'm just like, is this
next
are
level?
you really making the Epstein files a marketable moment about you and not the other things? And I think it's both of it, right? And then second, it's a salaciousness of views. We talked about it last week. It's just everything is salacious.
Yeah.
Everything is about, some now the most the biggest Google trend that we have is Trump diapers. Apparently, there is an email that says how Epstein tells Maxwell that, hey, Trump is coming, we don't have enough diapers. The next trending, apparently they didn't have enough diapers and he shit everywhere. And that is what is being discussed. Another thing that is being discussed is apparently Justin Bieber and somebody's baby being stolen by the Kardashians. So what I'm saying is that here is a network of powerful people who have been given the opportunity, access, material resources, and the impunity to act as brutal monsters. And instead of that, we've reduced everything to salaciousness. And it's the demand and supply of content, not news. And we have content producers, we don't have journalists.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. It's awful. I
have spent enormous amount of time
this is
in the archive, the Epstein files, that I'm like
yuck. I have to say, the one thing is, like, I keep thinking of various people, and I will check it. I'll check for what yields and what results, and it's really the extraordinary lack of brown and black people in there. Just like a teeny bit of like joy there. From
Okay,
that.
so I don't want to
just a tad.
I'm very
she's
sorry
come here
to
to burst my bubble.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm not talking about all the. I'm not talking about the Saudi princess.
No. So my comment is just that every person / community has their own version of Epstein, right? That's what we mean when we say it's it's like a global symptom. I mean, obviously Epstein is like the big bad wolf, like Harvey Weinstein was the big bad wolf, but does that mean that there were no men rapists like who are of color in the world? Like, of course not, right? But there are, everybody has their own Epstein. It's just that this is now Epstein operated in the world of finance, which has a certain race element to it.
Totally.
In the world of like the global elite and governance, which, as we long know, has been dominated by, Hindu supremacists, supremacists of all kinds. And so I think it leaves out a certain demographic of people. But I think if I had to guess, like, with knowing the number of brown people that are in tech, like there must be their guy, and it's just a matter of time.
Of course.
So I think this moment you can take now a little bit, but there will be a moment when we'd be like, why is it just
No, I mean, we are already in that moment as people hooked on to news in India and whatever,
That's
like
true.
the Middle East and stuff like that. We get it. It's to me, it's that extraordinary power circuit, people who start wars, spies, like this universe. And it feels like, even if, and I'm of the view that like the sub-imperialisms are very potent, right? I mean, India, South Africa, Brazil, Turkey, all these countries are just like, say again?
Saudi.
The Saudis, China, it's like these are not countries that we want to necessarily uphold. They're very powerful. They're sub-imperial in how they move.
100%.
But it's interesting to think about, ways in which the current circuit still favors this kind of top layer. The world is still currently exactly the way it was post-Cold War or something like that. It feels like a bit like that. But anyway, yeah, there's very little solace.
Definitely.
I was just kidding, because I'm just glad, like, a lot of semi-interesting, black celebrities and stuff are not in there. Thank God. But I think we are reaching, like, past the halfway point, and I didn't want us to leave without thinking about just the extraordinary nature of, like, this news circuit and what it leaves out, and this tidal wave of news, this tidal wave of information, like, we're drowning. And of course, on the other side, we have, like, the full blown intensity of starvation as a political genocidal tool in Cuba, Sudan, and Palestine. And literally, we get nothing on Cuba except from the same old 3 or 4 lefties, and I'm grateful for their voices, but it's like, it's a blackout of giving us stuff about Cuba. Not one liberal media will dare to say anything, because, oh my God, Cuba, it's so bad. It's like they're growing up with this idea. And it's just painful. And Sudan, of course, always ignored, And then Palestine, 8 trucks still not getting in. Health issues prevalent beyond belief. I mean, the genocide is slowed down. I don't even know what this term means, by the way. To
It's
slow
like
down.
repeatedly violated ceasefires, like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
BB has joined the Board of Peace, I read.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
But I think to your point about what has been left
The
out,
Cuba
I
thing.
think it's just Cuba. Oh, I have a funny anecdote here, which is one of I'm a big reality TV fiend, and two of the Real Housewives have been in this, like, center of a media storm for us, at least in our Bravo universe, because one of the housewives of New York had this racist tirade about Bad Bunny, and this is not okay, blah blah blah, and her show was being rebooted on E. She got fired. There was another housewife who came and spoke up, Taylor, and then Taylor had the most against Bad Bunny. And obviously people were like, she saw what happened to Jill. And then she says in her apology, I'm so sorry. Of course, Bad Bunny is American. I didn't even realize. Of course, Puerto Rico is America. I saw a flag and I thought it was Cuba. So, yes, she's like, I thought I was speaking up about Cuba. So there is Cuba in the popular imagination,
Wow.
Like, yeah, I think it just encapsulated. We're never going to get anything about Cuba. We're never,
and
never going to happen.
We all had a little tear for the Americas that Bad Bunny pulled up all the countries and the list and all that. And then I saw the one lone influencer being like, he forgot Belize.
Yeah. But the Guyanese are super happy. Like, the Guyanese are like, yes.
Yeah, of course. It's awesome. Yeah, any thoughts on Cuba? Has there been any coverage? Is there anything we can point people to?
I would say that the coverage, even with the progressive media that usually does take on some of it, I feel like the coverage this time hasn't been as robust. I think now there is a lot happening, and I think there is a lot to talk about how they are weaponizing these trade and the tariffs. Previously, tariffs were not. You could still continue doing business with Cuba in a way, and then the tariffs will not. Now the way Trump has fundamentally changed the way the tariff system applies, which means that there's a reason why countries like Iran and Cuba could survive despite the embargo and sanctions, even during the height of the Cold War, because you still allowed for other countries to still. Now, even the very idea of doing business would hit you with tariffs. It doesn't matter the product, the entire nation is hit with it, which means that maybe for the first time, Cuba's existing already embattled system, and that is where we really need more reporting. And I haven't gotten the report that I want, or I haven't gotten really the meat of how is it that they're doing it. Because now, the one thing that we know about American executive power, or any empire or any state's executive power, is once you cross the threshold, it's very hard for you to, reel it back in. And my biggest one is they're going to do this. They're going to replicate what they've done with the tariffs and the embargoes with Cuba to Iran. And after Iran, it's going to be a domino of other countries that they're going to do this to. And I really haven't found the kind of reporting that I need. There's also the China angle. What's China going to do? Because China is also going to be hit with it. There is a Venezuela angle because the Venezuelan oil is now going to Israel and not. There's so much information that I want to know, and no one is doing it, which means that now police, we have to report it. So it's like
so
well done.
us.
Yeah. So I want to, I think we should wrap up. But before that, I wanted to quickly point out in the chat, Tanya from Transition Magazine reminds us that there is soon a teach-in on Sudan with Nisreen Al-Amin, Fatin Abbas, and several amazing colleagues. So if you, Transition Magazine, if you're there, if you want to just put it in there in the message, some information, that would be awesome. So people can see everyone who's joined. And I guess in terms of wrap up, I want us to think a little bit more perhaps about this idea of media gaslighting, which is just in abundance, making us believe something is resistance when it's kind of limited, making us believe something is news when it's not, all this kind of stuff. But this question that we are all grappling with, at least we've been chatting with each other about it, is like, what are these limits of American revolt? What happens when Americans revolt? Americans, how is it going to play out? What are the big hurdles in its way? Just watching what is going on in Minnesota and then watching like Bad Bunny get credit for something. It's like the juxtaposition of the two is so jarring or problematic, but also this is the moment we're in where we have to hold multiple thoughts at the same time. I don't know, some thoughts, final thoughts from both of you on limits of American revolt. What's stopping us from bursting out through the gates? When will it be the tipping point, or will we never have one?
Madhuri?
I don't know how to answer that question. I feel like, I was thinking that even Bad Bunny was wearing a bulletproof vest, right, at the Grammys and for a long time. And I think it feels like everyone, like there's a population that has really been in America exploited, abused, gaslit, manipulated. I cannot imagine that there is much more endurance, At the same time, I think we are at a later stage of capitalism. We are at a later stage of all kinds of systems of power and oppression and control, and things that have managed to get really I think many opportunities were squandered by the Democrats in the past. Like Obama could have disbanded ICE. There's so many things.
We'll be here for hours if we start there.
I know. So I think there are so many missed opportunities, even with Me Too, to really right systemic wrongs. It's very hard for me. And obviously then, you have more and more of these moments. There was Me Too, there was BLM, and then now there's ICE, and there's the genocide. And it's obviously like those moments weren't enough to generate or to galvanize. Just a few heads rolled. Again, we were given like a small little piece of, shut up now, you got your thing. Harvey Weinstein is in jail, whatever. Like corporations put up little black squares to show that they were going to be quiet and learn, whatever. So I have hope. But I don't know what it will take. I think that we are quite limited by our own stake in these systems of control. The media stake in capitalism, the media stake in power. And it can only really burst free when we acknowledge that our complicity and our stake that we hold in these atrocities.
I know.
Yeah. I think Americans just need to learn what mass civil disobedience means.
Absolutely.
I think the difference between protest and marching, and I think that is a great way for us to build community, and we march, but that energy has to be transformed. And I think this idea of mass civil disobedience is, and it's not just Americans. I think that idea of mass civil disobedience has been completely erased out of countries like India that has a long history, and the neoliberal state for the last 30, 40, depending on how long you go back, their role is to kind of destroy that knowledge of that mass civil disobedience. You have to understand that we are coming from a moment in which not only mass civil disobedience has been that knowledge, that memory has been completely wiped out. We've also in a moment where we are seeing the emergence of a new kind of unionization, labor strikes. I know, Bhakti, you say that the strike is almost true European, but it's beginning, right? Like you now know Azure for apartheid. Americans are learning, they are learning what it means, and there is a lot of momentum that is being built in. And I think what I would really like is that we're all pieces of a larger puzzle that needs to come together. I think the roadmap for any successful liberation is to think of it as a marathon. It is educate, agitate, organize, and no one can do all three. And I think it is that consistently just doing it over and over and over again. I was in Cairo just before the revolution, and if you had asked me, will there be an Egyptian revolution, I would have been like, no way. And there's a reason why writers, historians, and political scientists are always wrong. We never know when a mass movement is going to happen. We didn't know that BLM was going to just... It happens because something is there, and I think that is important. And I think we just need to keep feeding that. We need to keep feeding that fire. And it's hard. It's hard to be, we've been so... There's lots of despair. And I think this helps, because I think this is why this podcast was born, this idea of trying to think through it. Yeah. And I think I would say that because Americans are not made of one cloth, and because they come from different histories of resistance, different histories of mobilization, I think maybe tapping that into it is more. But I am hopeful. I just want to wait for Americans to understand that they actually have the Second Amendment rights.
Yeah.
I want them, especially in stand your ground states. I think this is where we need to. And I think we need to understand that, I think as somebody says, we have to support each other. And I love what Minneapolis is doing, like the fact that you are just on the street corner saying that this is my community. Yeah. It's important.
And I know ICE hasn't been abolished, borders haven't been abolished, but there is a significant victory in those numbers pulling back. That pullback, it means something. It means something succeeded. That 700 or 800 of the ICE people have been pulled out of there. No, of course, all power to both what you've both said. And that was the thing about the Zara celebration of Zara that was bothering me, is that the lack of the boycott in the popular vocabulary, baseline boycott thing.
That's right. A boycott is so effective.
Boycott is so effective.
Because I see a lot of comments about
Zara. Do you really need more Zara?
Yeah, I mean, you can easily, we had said, I don't know if it was in the previous episode, or we were talking about like how AOC could have easily extended the general strike to the rest of the country. Mm-hmm. I do want to say that there's so many comments that I'm reading about being worried and afraid, and I mean, I have to acknowledge it is a very terrifying time. It is, the consequences are real. It's just very difficult to say, go put your body on the line. It's not. There are real consequences to that.
Yeah. ICE has not pulled back. Someone is reminding. No, of course they've not pulled back. I think there are a few of the ICE troops, or whatever you want to call it, militia, I think had to be was sent back or something. Maybe it's totally fake news.
Well, but when there is a protest and there is a boycott, that means the media has to cover it. So for example, when there was an anti-ICE protest over here in New York a couple of weeks ago, and people were arrested, people simply have to cover it. You simply, even if the media is just saying, well, this protest happened, and they offer you no analysis, at least that there is this resistance. And resistance doesn't have to be something that you do that you're afraid of. Boycott is a long, successful, incredibly effective form of resistance. Yeah. And this is something that one could think of. One could join community groups. I saw somebody mention ICE whistles. There's so many organizations and nonprofits and immigrant alliance groups that conduct like know your rights trainings, that give you these types of whistles, that give you cards that say that you have the right to remain silent, you have a right to a counsel. There's small ways to get involved, and none of them are things that we need to do on our own.
I know.
So, find your community, find your people, stay safe, and I will always offer up boycott as like a very solid step
Totally.
forward.
It's very, very satisfying. People don't understand. You think you need your Starbucks, but actually it's more satisfying to have boycotted it, you know? It just is the case. But
And I just
anyway,
want to add one more thing. The thing is that it is also okay for us to appreciate the moment that was felt cathartic when Bad Bunny performed. And it's
sure,
okay,
sure.
okay for us to pull him in and say, you know what, why were you on Zara? Why
Yeah,
were you
yeah.
on Zara? Like, let's say that why were you on Zara? Like, I think the idea that there was a moment of boycott when I remember early on the genocide, Zara did this photo shoot, which was disgusting for me. And
Oh,
for me,
yes.
that was the moment when I was like, you know, initially, like once a year, Zara would have this huge sale before 2023. Once a year, I would go. You know, that was where you got your basics. Now, I have not bought anything from Zara for over 3 years now. I don't miss it.
Yeah.
I have boycotted many products, and every day I learn. Every day I learn there's some complicity, and I try to remove that out of my life, and it works. And boycott, as you make it a part of your life, is something that, as Madhuri said, it's effective. It can work. We don't need all of this. You know.
I know. I agree. I agree. And I'm gonna end on a note. I went this week to see Arundhati Roy talk about her book, and it was wonderful. Of course, she has 1,000 million brilliant things to say, and she was talking about just how all her life, every time she has written, she's dragged into the courts for the most ridiculous, horrible, nonsensical things, like they're finding obscenity when there isn't. Now this time it was her memoir, which had her holding a cigarette as a 20-year-old, and she was dragged into the court for that. You know, they're just finding ways. And she was saying at this point, a writer in India is being considered a terrorist, and she said they're calling us narrative terrorists. And I was like, you know, that's exactly what I want to be. And it's just that bring it, you know, break the narrative. And this is what we say, right, about the Zionist narrative, the white supremacy narrative. It's a terrorizing narrative that is so hard to push through, break through. But when she was saying that, I thought, you know, there's an opportunity also in that we must take on, you know, and it has to go alongside boycotts and strikes and everything else. But I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for coming. And this was wonderful. And we'll be back next Thursday at the same exact time.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Mar, who said we are getting braver and smarter by the day. And I think that's true. We are getting braver and smarter by the day. And I think
yeah. All right. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.